Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about Resident Evil 7 today. Resident Evil 7, interesting game. On the whole, good, surprisingly good. Mainly because, you know, my relationship with Resident Evil series really went downhill with 6. I loved 4. I think almost everyone started on 4. I love 5 as well. Still, not as good as 4. And then after 5, I kind of got into the old ones. I got a remake on the GameCube. And then, Resident Evil 2 remake came out later, years later. But it was 6 that really was odd. It was kind of like, hey, we're doing a third-person action game where you're going to slip and slide and jump all over the place. And there's basically, I tried Leon's story because I wanted the horror part, and then you slowly escalate to the action part, and they just went all action with everything, and I just didn't like that game, and I never beat it. I was just like, I'm not having fun, I'm not enjoying the story, and it feels just wrong and weird. So when they said they were rebooting the series, we're going back to basics, back to horror-based thing, and we're doing Resident Evil 7 as a first-person shooter. I was very skeptical as to whether or not this game was going to be good or not. And it came out, it was weird. I think it was a cross-gen launch title as well. So when it came out, I just never played it. I didn't care. I ignored it. And what my impression was that the staff that did Resident Evil were out of ideas and were basically jumping on the jump scare horror Western game bandwagon with games like Slender, Five Nights at Freddy's, Layers of Fear, all that crap, to be frank with you. And I was very kind of in the presumption that this is what it was, and combined with Resident Evil 7. I'm very pleasantly surprised to say that's really not the case. There is actually one section where they kind of acknowledge that whole Western horror genre thing with the psycho brother who makes you do all these weird traps and clowns and very Western jump scare-esque puzzles and stuff. But the rest of the game is very atmospheric. It's very tension-based. What was very pleasant, surprisingly, is how well the gunplay felt in first person. I was surprised that the enemy variety wasn't huge, but the normal standard enemy of like the black goo humanoid creature was scary, intimidating, and like rewarding to take down. It was honestly like a unique, fun experience. I would say, yeah, this is a Resident Evil game. Definitely different than the rest of it, but it still has the DNA of a great game. And I love this opening sequence too, where you're kind of in the swamp in Louisiana, of all places. I don't know why I find a horror game in Louisiana so funny, because it's just, it's just like a nothing state, as I understand it, or Arkansas or something. And they kind of, they played on that whole rural hillbilly horror thing, but it didn't I think, take over the whole story, I would say. There's obviously the father of the family who's that archetype. The brother's more of like a psycho who does all these little things. And then the mother is like this bug lady. So that's like very Japanese, that she turns into like a bug type thing. And then you have the silent grandmother who I just thought that was a cool twist that they did at the end, who turns out that she's the body of the little girl due to extreme rapid aging, that this fear borrowed asset girl, that's the only thing I can call her, the fear girl, shows up in this game, or the ring girl or whatever, and the little girl is the evil thing, and it turns out she's actually been the old lady this whole time. I actually thought that was a cool twist. But the atmosphere in this opening level is such a I don't know, it's so great to kind of just feel what they're kind of going for this kind of, daytime horror. I really appreciate when you can make something during daytime scary, and I think it's because with this new generation of systems that the level of detail is really amazing. And what happens is all the corpses or weird, grotesque things are kind of hidden in the detail, and only when you get close to them you realize how awful it is. And it's also very brave of them to do a totally new premise and totally new character. That there's this guy called Ethan. His fiance was abducted or went missing 3 years ago, and then he tracks her down to this place at the baker's house 3 years later. It's a very simple, effective, straight to the point story that just gets off on the right footing. It's kind of silly / funny how many times that the green herb potion I mean, if you can call it that, in this game has advanced, because now there are parts where Ethan, I mean, these horrible things where Ethan gets his arm cut off, or like part of his body is horribly injured, and the herbal medicine is able to like reattach his arm and all this other crazy stuff. That's just like, okay, sure, why not? It's kind of like a little bit of a reality breaking thing for a game that's supposed to be super, reality based. But yeah, the story isn't too bad. It's not great or anything, but it's okay. We were doing biological experiments on this girl, and I was never really clear if the tanker she was on, they never really clarify this, but I like to think it would be cool if the tanker she was on was the same one from Resident Evil 5, and because the enemies looked like Ouroboros enemies. But oh yeah, no, I recall the whole big reveal that the thing that makes this game, what infects them, because we did the T virus, then Resident Evil 4 was the Las Plagas parasite, and in this one they're made of mold. They're all moldy, and mold is a biological, mental neuronic hive mind essentially, and taken to its extreme, which I just think is the funniest thing ever. But they're mold enemies. That's the big bad. And yeah, the enemies are good. I found that the boss fight with the father was surprisingly good, and there are multiple boss fights with him because he just does not die. Like, I literally thought there were multiple times I thought, okay, he's dead now. Like in most Resident Evil games, even though they're zombies, right? I mean, they'll come out maybe once or twice, for 3 rounds at most. But the father in this game came back like 4, maybe 5 times. Like I think you hit him with the car, and you pin him in the garage, then he blows up, and then he comes back, and when you finally kill him, it's in this really cool chainsaw battle in this in the basement, right? And I thought it was really cool that you kind of feel almost evenly matched in a way, because Ethan can like basically heal himself magically with these potions. That fighting with chainsaws seems kind of like child's play, which is kind of funny. And then when you finally kill him, it's like he cannot regenerate anymore. His regeneration powers are totally zapped, and all of your chainsawing of his flesh is just does him in, and he explodes and turns into a pool of whatever. And I'm not sure if he comes again after that, but yeah. Also, it's funny that this game also incorporated the same yellow tape that Resident Evil Remake 2 incorporated, where they're going to put yellow tape on stuff to like, hey, you can break me or something, which is, I think, necessary in this game because it's so detailed that you do need a bit of guidance from the player from the game to know what the player should do. Also, I saw a lot of this demo of the first area being teased and demoed and stuff, because if it was a big deal, which it is, but the whole kind of setting during the day, you're exploring this very creepy, abandoned house, even though there's sunlight, it's that feeling of like you're in a very wrong, bad place. And then you discover, all of the missing people and the gross, house or whatever, and the poverty core, as you might call it. Again, it's very impressive to make something creepy during daytime and in the sun. I think it's also interesting that they laid out the family as like these are the bosses you're going to face early on in the game. It kind of introduced you to that concept. Mia herself, I find her to be fairly likable. Usually, like, you know, most Resident Evil characters are very generic, and I think even Mia was supposed to be a very generic damsel in distress, but then it turns out she's a zombie that's been has superhuman strength that can kill you. And I just thought that's a very interesting relationship dynamic, because on one point it's like, can I trust, you know, my fiance, can I trust my girlfriend to not kill me, or you know, can I save her? Can I save her and bring her back, and is it even worth it? Another weird thing too is that in every other Resident Evil game, you've saved via typewriters, and in this game you save via a voice recording box, which I just thought is a nice touch to show, like, hey, this is a new version of Resident Evil. We're even changing the basic iconic save device, and I think it's kind of maybe a little bit lame that they remove that in Resident Evil 8, but irregardless. I think it's funny, yeah, that Mia, I think when she first attacks you, she actually like takes off your arm or something. You're able to repair it, but yeah, it's just this crazy it's an interesting dynamic. And the other thing, I don't know if I just noticed, if it was just me who noticed this, but Mia's hair is incredibly flowy. It looks like it's almost like floating in water at certain points, and I know it's probably just like a graphical thing that they still, you know, can't do hair and food and liquids in games for some godforsaken reason. But I kind of like that her hair was super flowy. It looked very surreal, and I kind of like that about the character. Also, again, it's really interesting that when you first meet her and you rescue her and try to get her out of there, she kind of says to you that, oh no, you shouldn't be here, and that she was doing something here that she didn't want you to know about, and she's not willing to tell you. And so it's this whole pile of secrets. And again, it's like if you were in Ethan's shoes, like, it's such a dilemma. Like, this is someone you care about, and you're supposed to be the damsel in distress, but you have all this other information that's like, can I even trust her? And it's a really interesting dynamic. I don't know, that the person you're supposed to save is also a person that is very good reason not to trust. And you're not married or anything, so it's not like, you know, you don't have to commit yourself, right? It's, I don't know, I just thought it's such an interesting dynamic. Aside from that, I was really surprised by the variety of guns you have. You know, the pistol, the shotgun, the Magnum, and by the end of the game you're getting like a submachine gun. Really cool stuff. And, you know, the one thing I think that has to be said is the one downside of this game is that it is rather short. It's like, I think I checked my playtime, it's like 7-8 hours. I beat it in like a day, and I was just really surprised. I was like, oh, that's it. I mean, I kind of understood and like forgave it for that, because even the last sequence, it kind of feels like it's ramping up. You're going into the mines, you have all of, you know, these zombies. It's like a horde, and you're basically blasting through them. It's turning into that action sequence of the game finally, and then you kind of get to the final boss, and it just kind of ends. I think there's two giant, you know, like mini bosses before that, and, you know, like a challenge of combat, and then it's kind of like over. And I kind of can forgive it for that, because for Resident Evil to come back from such an abysmal prequel, number 6, and not only innovate into first person, an original character, original story, and a great flow of combat and pacing and everything, and the only downside is that it just isn't very long, I think is a great thing, because it's a great starting point to build off you know, proper sequels using that formula. It's more of a proof of concept, and more similar to indie games and how games used to operate, which I think is just great. I know, I love that. And of course, we have Resident Evil 8 as evidence that, you know, once they figured out the formula, they're able to really make it stick and do something really good with this new formula. I also appreciated that the puzzles were there, that there were also decent puzzles, you know, keys, you know, finding things to rotate and put into things, you know, and they had the traditional fake wooden shotgun to get the real shotgun, you know, puzzle. I think it's actually really funny. There was a little detail when you're in the attic, I believe, it you can find a little piece of paper or evidence that kind of says is like a what do you call it? An invoice from the contractor who actually built all these ridiculous puzzles that you see inside the house. And I just think that's so funny that, you know, you're in a video game, you understand there's gonna be all these weird booby traps and you're in a castle or something. But the fact that you're in someone's house, they try to add a bit of realism to it. That like, oh yeah, this guy in Louisiana actually had a contractor build all these ridiculous light puzzles and fake rotating doors in his house. And it's just like, you didn't have to explain it, but the fact that you tried to is just kind of funny / cute, because like, we really don't care. But yeah, it's trying to bring like, you know, lore into the picture. But yeah, I think it had, you know, good pacing. The boss battles were good. You know, you never had too much ammunition, which I think was really important. You know, so it incentivized you to really swap it up a bit. I'm shocked that one of the earlier weapons you get is the flamethrower, because that thing rocks. That's awesome, and you get to use it in the greenhouse, and it feels so much fun. So much fun. There was one part of the game that I guess I have mixed feelings about. It's where Ethan gets, you're on the boat and you leave, and Ethan gets swallowed by the giant muck monster, and you play as Mia. And when you play as Mia, you kind of like are brought back to basics. You know, you've lost your weapons, you've lost you know, most of your supplies, and now you have to relearn how to play the game as Mia for like a couple chapters only. And now you basically have like a pistol, I think a little machine gun as well, eventually, if you get on the captain's deck, and flash grenades and stuff. And then after those 2 chapters, you just find Ethan, and then you play as Ethan for the last little few chapters of the game. Yeah, I think it's okay, but I remember I tried something that was really strange. Yeah. What was it? It was so before you get on that boat sequence, you have the choice to give the vaccine to either your girlfriend or that other girl, the one who's been on the radio helping you and, you know, trying to, you know, fight the Bakers. Like, it's really weird because if you even give her the vaccine and you don't have Mia with you, like Mia's back on the dock and she's, you know, left behind, when you're playing as Ethan and you get swallowed up by the muck, you still play as Mia, implying that she somehow followed you regardless. I didn't finish that playthrough, so I don't know what happens, but I just thought that was just very inconsistent, that happened. I remember I started that section over many times, trying not to inject the monster with the vaccine and trying to keep it so I have 2 of them and both for both characters. But yeah, it was also cool finding like sort of upgrades for the guns that you could attach to them, and they would, you know, charge them up, so to speak. I think I got stuck only on one of the puzzles that the brother did, where I forget exactly what it was, but it's something really, really stupid that I wasn't doing something in the right order with the clown robot or something. And outside of that, I mean, I guess that's pretty much most of the game. The rest of it, I mean, even the DLC is actually pretty interesting. How do I say this? In the DLC, you play as Chris Redfield, and he just looks nothing like Chris Redfield. I don't know what the heck their problem is, but Chris Redfield and Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 5, and now in Resident Evil 7 all look like a different friggin' generic, like, military dude. Like, they can never get his hair right. There's always something different. And even in this, his face structure is different. I'm like, who is that? If you look at the Resident Evil 7 DLC thing called whatever, it's like, that's not Chris Redfield. It was like, you know, Chris saves whoever, like that. You're joking, right? That's not him. And so it's the whole thing where Chris comes in to basically, you know, save the day. And he's even in the credits, right? When he like extracts you, he's like, oh, I'm Chris Redfield, I'm here to help you. I work for whatever. I know in 8 he works for Umbrella, but I can't remember what he works for in 7. But yeah, it's like, that's not, I was like, you're joking, right? And the DLC with Chris Redfield, it's fairly fun, I think. It's obviously more combat oriented. It has this whole thing where all these rejected mechanics they obviously want to put in the game, like night vision and a gas mask. And it's kind of more like a Zelda dungeon. It's like, oh, you can go here only once you have this item, for example. And that's kind of how you play that whole little section. What did annoy me, I think there's one enemy in there that's like invulnerable until you get a certain thing, and I just kept shooting him, running out of ammo, and then I didn't want to restart the thing, but I did anyway because I'd spent all my ammo on this one guy. And it's kind of fun because you like kind of follow up chasing down the brother character and, you know, finding out what happened to him. And it's a pretty decent DLC. It's nothing super amazing, but I think it was pretty good. I remember it's kind of funny too how that first section when you're creeping around the house trying to avoid the father character is really like the only super accurate horror part in the game. You know, like it's kind of like if you're found, like you probably will die, and it's the part where you actually have to hide and run, besides us playing Mia later in the campaign. And if I recall, I think they're injecting themselves with some kind of mold or something to like rebirth the girl, and she can connect and like telekinetically talk to all the other mold creatures. And they're trying to like rebirth the girl. I can't remember exactly. Hold on, let me. Oh right, that's right. There was the tanker ship that Evelyn was on, and it, you know, something happened to it, and it came into the shore and crashed into the port of Louisiana. So there is a reason why it's in Louisiana, because there's a port there, and it kind of spilt out and infected everyone, and they were all being controlled by her mold mind powers. Another thing I do have to say about the game itself is the main theme, Don't Tell Annie Rhodey. Don't tell Annie Rhodey. I don't know why it makes me laugh, but it's so intense and so stupid, and the melody is so simple, and they try to make it so epic. I don't know, every time I hear it, I can't not laugh. I don't know why. Oh yeah, and I forgot the backstory of Mia is that she was a agent working for the equivalent of like Umbrella or like another. Oh, what was the new company's name? It wasn't Tricell. It was something else. But basically, they were sent to bodyguard this little girl, right? And of course, the little girl treated her like her mother and her family. And she's like, well, I'm not really your mother and your family. When she realized that, she went, you know, ape. She destroyed everything because she just wanted a family, because she's just a mold girl. But yeah, no. So the story is pretty and not bad. You know, it's kind of original-ish. It's obviously boring from a lot of other stuff, but you know. Also, just remember, you also get like grenade launchers and mines and other remote control explosives in this game, and you know, that final rush before the final boss, it was so fun to reload that and just like go wild on all the enemies, used all of your, you know, your weapons and just not worry about ammo, as is the case in most Resident Evil games. But yeah, I can't really think of much else to say about it. It's a like very beyond decent game. I was pleasantly surprised that it was not just a boring jump scare game. There was actual gameplay and components and characters and everything you need to make a proper experience that is original and decent. And so for that reason, you know, I totally recommend it. It's great. And I hope to see more of this formula later. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Have a great day, guys.